Hello, everyone, and welcome to 60 Seconds of Stoicism podcast. I am your host, Ryan Lee Mays, the writer and creator of the Octot program, and with me is my wife, Melinda.
Hey, guys.
And we are going to talk about a very special episode today. It's like one of those ABC very special episodes that we had as a kid. What makes this episode kind of special is people will say, oh, I've dealt with a little bit of that, or I know somebody who's dealt with that. But this one, I think, is a topic that's probably affected all of us at some time. It might currently be affecting us, and it will probably affect us in the future unless we learn some steps to kind of take a hold of it. We are talking about anxiety. And this might be a kind of a three-part series. Last week, we talked about living in the present moment, which can also cause some anxiety. You're not in the present moment because you're worrying about other things. But today we're going to talk about the worry itself. So first thing I think we need to do is we need to kind of define what anxiety is. I have the DSM-5 here. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's a diagnostic manual for disorders for psychologists and psychiatrists. And we're going to talk about the different types of anxiety disorder just real briefly. So we kind of have a ground level for our discussion today. The first one is separation anxiety disorder. That is the disorder of seeing people leave or come in and out of your life and you're not sure when, or that you have to leave them and you don't want to because you might have a fear that something bad will happen, or you may never see them again. In education that we're in, we see that a lot with students, especially younger students. They have that separation anxiety of, mom and dad may not be coming back to get me, or I'm worried that they may not come on time, things like that. So that's an easy one just to kind of figure out there. Selective mutism. Now, selective mutism is when people get into situations, especially social situations, they don't speak. They just kind of freeze up. They are afraid maybe of saying something that's, unintelligent, or saying something that's not pertinent to the situation, so they just don't want to speak at all. So selective mutism. You're like that?
Yeah, I think that's me.
No, you do fine. You do fine. But you might have experienced some of that. So yeah, absolutely. Specific phobias, and we know what that is. That's like, arachnophobia, the fear of spiders, or maybe fear of snakes, or maybe the fear of being in a car or a plane. So those are specific phobias. Another type of anxiety disorder. There is panic disorder, which is most likely more commonly known as like panic attacks. When you get that, just could be overwhelmed, or could be something specific that triggers it, so you get panic attacks. Agoraphobia, fear of big spaces, fear of small spaces, fear of leaving the house. A lot of people have that. And then there is substance medication anxiety. So that's something that has a chemical reaction that could make you feel anxious. And a lot of times when you get medication, if you look on the side, under side effects, it'll say, may cause anxiety. So you have to be careful about those. The one that is probably going to be the blanket one for all of us is general anxiety disorder. And that is the fear of just basically anything that can come, might come, could happen, could not happen. And that is the one I think a lot of us deal with. We may at times deal with the other little ones, but that's the big one. Now, these ones I gave you are actual diagnosed disorders, and it doesn't mean that you have to have a diagnosed disorder, which is usually 6 months or more, where you're having it severely. Instead, we're going to talk about how those things can occur in everybody from time to time and how we deal with it. So I just kind of wanted to go through some things, kind of setting up a little bit of how we're going to talk about this today. I'm going to throw a couple of questions out for us, and we'll look at some Stoic quotes and things like that that might help us on our journey. So, first question is, how does anxiety present to you physically when you've had it? You and I both have dealt with anxiety quite a bit. Physically, what does it do to you when you have anxiety?
It depends on how this, like, what the situation is.
Okay.
So sometimes it could be like, palpitations of the heart. One big one for me is I carry a lot of my stress and anxiety in my shoulders. I come home and I've got boulders, and you're pretty good at rubbing them out for me, or sometimes
I got this elbow. I think I could have been a really good professional wrestler dropping that elbow.
Yeah, so our youngest daughter is really good at doing that for me as well. And sometimes migraine headaches. Sometimes I'll get, a really bad headache and stuff. So that's
Yeah.
how it presents itself for me.
I think I'm pretty close to you. I feel it in my neck and my shoulders and headaches. I get that. I will feel almost like my heart skipping a beat sometimes in my chest when I'm dealing with a lot of anxiety for that. Yeah, it's just, you can definitely feel it, and it's not something that's in our head. There's actually proof out there. You can go to the Mayo Institute or other big medical institutions out there, and they talk about how anxiety can physically affect a person, even shorten life when you have a lot of anxiety. So there's definitely a physical effect when it comes to that. Some of the things that they said are the most common ones, or ones that kind of we've already talked about for that. Shaking. Shaking's one. We haven't talked about that, where you're just kind of shaking in place. Mm-hmm. It's almost like when you see an animal that gets scared, like dogs and things like that, they'll shake when they're in place. So shaking can be one of those. Sped up heartbeat, of course. Another one that was listed there was sweating. Profuse sweating.
Yeah.
Like sweating it out, because you're so worried for that. So that makes sense for that as awesome.
My hands get really sweaty.
Yeah.
I hate that.
And very specifically, like you and I just said, it says upper back, neck, and migraines. And we just said that ourselves. So yeah, that's how they can present.
And just in another reason why I would kind of like overeat sometimes, depending again, like how severity was, like, just like caused me to want to eat more, or in the moment my mind is on the thing that I'm stressing about, and I don't realize that I'm full, and I keep eating. I keep eating because my mind is so on the topic of what's to come.
Yeah, and speaking of that, we kind of had talked about it a little bit, going back to that DSM-5, having that chemical anxiety. You eat things like caffeine, and drink a lot of coffees and teas and things like that with high caffeine. It can cause us to feel that anxiousness, that nervousness that we have.
Oh yeah,
so
just adds to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to put in, we're gonna talk a lot about Stoicism today, specifically for this, and specifically Seneca and Epictetus. Might have a little bit of Rufus mixed in too, but Marcus Aurelius talked about it. It was a pretty common trend dealing with anxiety, and they all had different reasons in their lives to be anxious. But I wanted to start with a Bible verse, actually, and it's one that I have heard people quote, whether you're a Christian, a non-Christian, an atheist, because it makes sense. And it says, which one of you, taking the thought about the things you worry about, can add to his stature 1 cubit? How does anxiousness make your life better?
It doesn't. It doesn't. And that's what I have to tell myself often, like, how is me stressing or having such anxiety going to change the outcome of what I'm stressing about?
Yeah. And most times it doesn't. No. Things that we worry about, going back to the old Seneca saying, we suffer more in our imagination than in reality. Mm-hmm. And we worry about these things and cause ourselves a physical sickness with it when those things never come. So, very good. Anxiety is also something that can be triggered. And part of the diagnosis in DSM-5 is to help people who are clinical patients set up for being aware of the triggers that can get them anxiety. They can either, one, try to avoid those situations, or they can do things like cognitive behavioral therapy and rational emotive behavioral therapy that helps them slowly test those areas until they get more and more comfortable with them. So you and I were talking about triggers that we've had for anxiety in our life, and I'm sure listeners out there, a lot of these you guys can relate to, and you may have your own list. We would love to hear that. Please comment or tell us in person, but these are some of the triggers for us. You said big events, things that are coming up with a lot of importance on them. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, well, I mean, currently, right now, we have a big event coming up that I am having a little bit of anxiety over, just to be honest. I've never had to put a big event together by myself. I have help of family, but still, I feel like a lot of the majority of it is on me. We have my youngest daughter's quinceañera coming up, and I have a lot of people coming, putting together the list of everything, the decorations, the ceremony part, the song list, the food, and the invitations. And so it's overwhelming because I don't want to miss out on the things that are really important for that day. And then just something just as simple as talking in front of, the groups of families when they come down for parent teacher conferences. And I know I have to talk to families and stuff, and the fear and the anxiety of not being prepared and not having all my notes and all the facts of, you know, what I have to say for each individual child, and it could be nerve-wracking. And then I think the other one for me, probably the biggest, is the anxiety of what's to come, like, what can happen to my kids.
Sure.
If, are they going to be okay? Did they get to school okay? Did they get home? How, and just, with things that are going on in society, things that are going on in schools, I worry about what can happen at school to my daughter. So
you bring up an interesting point. So statistically, women have more diagnosed anxiety disorders than men do. It's about 23 to 25% to men, which is like 17 to 19%.
Yeah.
Why do you think, in your opinion, women have higher diagnosed anxiety disorder?
If I had to take a guess, it's because, being natural caregivers, we're caregiving, like taking care of our children, and we'll work on top of that and whatever else is going on in our life. But, I know times have changed and men are doing that as well now. But, for me as a mom, I would say it's because, it's being able to know how to take care of my family. Sure. and then everything else on top of that.
Yeah. And I think you're right on. And statistics show that men kind of have a robotic mentality when it comes to their own anxiety. It's more of an in-the-moment thing. And it's not that they don't worry about events to come, but it's like in the moment as in what's going to happen today, tomorrow, or next week. For women, it is a very caregiver-based anxiety. And women got a lot more than we do. I guess we need to step up on a lot of this caring part. And do our parts for that. But yeah, it is. It's in surveys, women say it's my kids, it's my home, it's fear of losing jobs or my spouse losing a job, things like that. And that causes a lot of anxiety. That kind of goes into some of my triggers that I have, especially when it comes to work. And it doesn't matter where I would work. It doesn't matter if I was younger, older, present time. I have anxiety of something going wrong when I'm not there, that I'm not there to help out. Some people would say, I'd be glad you're not there. Let them deal with it. But I don't feel like that. Especially being director of the school, I feel like I have to captain the ship. And if something goes wrong and I'm not there, then I'm afraid, and I don't have to be afraid. I'm going to talk about it a little bit. I put things in place to make sure I don't have to worry about that. But it is that kind of fear that's going on. And then I have fear, too, of not being able to take care of my family. And the question is it really a fear of not taking care of my family or not taking care of my family to the extent I'm at right now? If we had to lose things, if we had to downsize to a smaller house, if we had to give up one of our vehicles, if we had to, like that, would we be okay? Yes, absolutely. We'd be completely fine. But I think the fear is losing the lifestyle that we have. And as Stoics, students of Stoicism, that should be the farthest thing from our mind. It's all about just making sure your needs are met and going from there. So yeah, those are some triggers that we have. We also talked about fear of dying early, fear of being hurt again in relationships.
Yeah. I think we both have experienced that. So yeah, fear of losing a job and not being able to take care of our families and our needs. But yeah, just, past relationships being hurt, I was there, that was me. And, so yeah, it's natural for me to fear once in a while, I have that thought in my mind, are you going to leave? Are you not going to be there? Or you might pass away. So yeah, I definitely think about those things.
And I hope you're okay with me talking about this, but you've had dreams about that. Yeah. In fact, you just recently had a dream where I went away and I just didn't come back. I disappeared. You didn't know what happened to me.
I did, yeah. Or you had a heart attack. I had that dream as well. So it was just kind of like, oh man, like, is that going to happen? What do I need to do? And because I've been through a lot in my past, I told you in the beginning in our relationship, I was like, I'm the kind of person that's used to having a plan A, B, and C because, you know, there's, we'd gone through so much. I went through so much as a kid.
Yeah.
I went through so much things as a mom, a single parent. So, I had to learn how to become a survivor.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that's part of getting over that anxiety, is putting things in place to be a survivor, like having those plans, like you said, and dealing with it. And go back to the whole idea of premeditatio malorum, where you're preparing for the worst thing. You're not hoping for it or even expecting it, but you're saying, if it does come, then this is how I'm going to handle this, and you're ready for it. So
Definitely.
it translates to premeditating on evil, the bad things that can happen to you. So it's very good. And then I think another one too is, and it kind of goes back to mine about the quality of life, but fear of losing physical items that we have. And I think I'm going to also count money as a physical item. Losing income, losing wealth, not having enough money saved away for a certain lifestyle that you want to live. And people who are non-Stoic students and maybe non-faith students, they might say, well, yeah, that stinks. Put all the money away you can. Live a good life. Live happy. Live rich. Live free. I say live satisfied. That's what you want to do. Change your idea what satisfaction is, which is having your needs met, having a good life, feeling good and feeling healthy, having a great mindset free of anxiety and or lessen anxiety and depression, and just being very, very appreciative. But yeah, fear of losing things. So those are some of the triggers.
I think those are the things that we talked about when you and I first met, and I was just like, you had a hard time getting me to say, what were things that I looked forward to in the future. And it was because, again, just going back to that survival and living in the moment, and I didn't really know what it was like to look at the future sometimes, because it was just trying to find out, like, how is today going to be and tomorrow, and that was about it. And but yeah, just I wasn't, and having too much was an anxiety for me. I think that when we got together, we had to get a new car. We came into our house, and over time things just started to come about in the house, and I started to feel anxiety because I was like, this is too much. This is too much. I'm not used to this. And so that was a trigger for me,
Going back to that time, I felt like, hey, isn't this great? We're giving the kids a bigger house, and they all have their own rooms, and we're getting 2 cars, and we're getting, like, am I not doing what I'm supposed to do here? But you actually had it right. And going back and I'm looking on it, it was a lot really quick. It was things that we could lose. And having studied Stoicism now for these years, looking back on it, like, what? We could have probably started a lot smaller and maybe just added on, and we didn't have to jump into the deep end of the pool and just grab everything at once. So I understand where your anxiety was with all that for sure. I want to read a excerpt from Seneca here from his letters. It's letter 74, I think, like point 30 on it. But he says, all anxiety and worry is dishonorable. All reluctant to act, for honorable conduct is sure and unhampered, undismayed, ever standing at the ready. So, do you think of anxiety as being dishonorable? It's very interesting. Seneca puts some things in certain ways that maybe other Stoics wouldn't. But he is definitely speaking not just to himself, but to other people. When you read Meditations, Marcus is speaking to himself. Seneca is speaking to others. But he says anxiety is dishonorable. Do you feel like that about people? Do you ever, is there maybe, how am I going to phrase this? Maybe we look down on people a little bit that just can't get their stuff together. And they're worried about everything.
I guess if you put it that way, when you say dishonorable, I mean, I don't feel like I would ever think like that of someone, but yeah, if you put into detail that way, I don't know that I feel like it's dishonorable, but I feel like it's used as an excuse. And
Yeah.
maybe that's the same thing. Maybe
Yeah.
that's the same way of thinking of it as dishonorable. But, we try to put people on a certain,
Yeah. Why aren't you like me more?
yeah, why aren't you like me?
Yeah.
Like, why aren't you like this person? They have anxiety, but they can do this. So, yeah, we can become very judgmental. And I'm going to be honest, I'm guilty of that. I have done that,
Sure.
you know.
Sure. I think a lot of people have accused Stoicism as being a judgmental philosophy. And that's not the case. Marcus Aurelius says we have no right to force our beliefs on other people. We have the right to do it for ourselves. So I want to read you a couple sentences later in this passage from Seneca. He says, "But when foolishness has something to fear, it is tormented in its expectation, as though the bad thing had already occurred. What it fears to endure, it endures already through fear." I love that part. I don't want to get lost on me stumbling over my reading here because I've got glasses and I'm trying to read a tiny font on this. He says, what it fears to endure, it endures already through fear. Like, it's beautiful. Like, I want to put that up on my wall somewhere, where I have it in a little studio here. We're already living it. We're already living the bad stuff by being afraid that it's going to happen to us. Yeah. We're already living the consequence. It's fear right now. We're already enduring it. It doesn't even have to happen to punish us, so to speak, or to make us, deal with bad things in our lives. We're already dealing with the bad thing by having the anxiety and the fear. So I don't think that a person is dishonorable for having anxiety. I think anxiety itself is dishonorable when it's causing you to live a fear that's hurting you now. Because you're worried about the future so much.
And that's true, because there's a lot of things that I look back on and I'm like, man, if only I would have just did it through the fear and would have tried or talked about it more or dealt with it in a certain positive way, then it wouldn't have kept me from a lot of things that I missed out on that I probably could have accomplished.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you feel like we run away from our anxieties? Like we try to mask them, hide them under things, try to find things to keep us busy, because if we stop our minds for a second, we're going to go back to worrying right away.
Yeah, I probably have done that before.
Okay,
yeah, definitely.
I feel like maybe that's a tactic that I've used a lot, just keep myself busy, so to speak, with that. And some people, and definitely it's one of the tactics in psychology is, have a lot of things to do and a lot of people to talk to and a lot of groups to be part of, because it keeps your mind busy and it doesn't allow it to go to the dark places.
I think I used my kids. As an excuse. Oh, I'm busy. I'm a mom. I have so much to do. Got to go home. The kids have this. The kids have that.
Yeah.
But now look, they're grown. And what's the excuse, right?
Right. Absolutely. They can take care of themselves now. And so, but no, you're right. You're right. We do come up with a lot of excuses and we try to run away from things. And this is going to be my last one from Seneca tonight, because we want to talk about Epictetus here in just a second, who understood all of this probably better than anybody. But Seneca says, what's to be gained by getting away from it all? As if our worries won't follow us across the sea. What retreat is there where the fear of death cannot enter? What quiet spot in the deepest mountain stronghold that is not made fearsome by the thought of pain? No matter where you hide, you will be surrounded by the hue and cry of human misfortune. All around us are external cares to deceive and oppress us. Many more come boiling up from within, even in the midst of solitude. I love what he says here. It doesn't matter if you're by yourself on an island across the sea somewhere, you are going to have anxiety.
That's true.
If you allow it into your life. It doesn't matter if you're away from the crowd. Humanity is going to find a way to creep in. Picture what he's saying. You're on a solitude, you're on an island. Now what are the worries? Am I going to have enough food to eat? Is the supply going to last? Is there clean water? Is a pirate's going to come onto the island and raid and try to kill me?
If something happens to me, how am I going to get help? Who's going to come help me?
Exactly. So it doesn't even matter if you become a hermit or go into solitude. There's still going to be worries. There's still going to be anxiety. So how do we control this? And we're going to go into our being students of Stoicism here and talk about dichotomy of control.
Yeah.
If you're a new student of Stoicism, you're going to hear this term so many times as you study it. The dichotomy of control. understanding what we control and what things we can't control.
Definitely.
And this is really brought to the forefront by Epictetus. Marcus Aurelius talks about this a little bit, and Seneca definitely alludes to that. But Epictetus says, it's not in our control to have everything turn out exactly as we want, but it is in our control to control how we respond to what happens. Yeah. So I'm going to give a scenario here, and I want you to find the good in it. Okay? This is what I'm just throwing out here. You get in a car accident. Where's the good in that? A lot of people are afraid to go driving. A lot of people are afraid to get out on the road. A lot of people are afraid to spend long periods of time on like road trips, things like that. You get in a car accident. Where's the good in that?
Oh,
I hit you with a hard one. I know you hate it when I surprise you with the things like this, but yes.
I'm not the speaker. You are.
No. It's not about speaking so much. I hear it's just your gut feeling. Like when this is a scenario. You put yourself into this position. You just got hit by another car, and you get out, and your car is totaled. Where can you find good in that?
Well, it really challenges me for, having to gather my thoughts and say, okay, what is the next step? Because it's kind of what I have to do as a teacher in a class. If the building is on fire, or if a student gets hurt, or there's a fight, and I have to like automatically think like, so it helps me with my thought process. Like it causes me to have to like, honestly, just say fear, you're gonna have to set aside, because I need to figure out what are the steps that I need to do so that I can come to safety, get some help. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's providing clarity of mind in a moment that can be very stressful.
Exactly.
For it. So definitely. I actually write about this scenario in the book, The Octad. If you pick it up, available on Amazon. That's OCTAD, The Octad. That's my commercial for it. Talk about you get in a car accident and you can't make it to work. And where's the good in that? You had to wait for a tow truck. It might have taken 45 minutes. The good thing is it didn't take an hour and a half. And maybe your car is going to cost you $2,000 to fix. The good news is you have insurance. Or it didn't cost you $7,000 to fix.
That's true.
The good thing, the great thing, the most important thing is you're alive when you come out of that. You could not have been. So when you start taking a moment to take that beat and say, okay, what can I pull out of the situation right now that seems hopeless and unstable, and you're just unsure of yourself and what's going to come after it, what can I take from this right now? We go back to thinking about like soldiers that become POWs and they're in these camps, and you're like, man, there's absolutely nothing to come out of this. And they say, well, I got in greater touch with God while I was in there. I was able to read while I was in there in some circumstances. I was able to show the limits I could push myself to and still survive and come out from that. And you're like, wow, this is just crazy that you guys can come out with positive things from such a horrible situation. But what that does for us is we are worried about the things to come. We have this anxiety. Something positive can always come out of something bad for it, if we focus our mind for that. And that is what Epictetus is saying right now. We can't control the things that we happen to us in life like we want to, but we can control how we think about them. Yeah. And some people might say, you lose your car, or maybe you lost your job, and then you say, that's okay. Here's an opportunity to rethink your career. Here's an opportunity to go back to school. Here's an opportunity to find a different job that you might like better. Here's an opportunity for this and that. So there's always positive thinking that come out of it. It's very hard for health situations. There is probably no darker moment than when you're diagnosed with cancer. And I've had to see it in my family so much, and with both of my parents multiple times for it. But what it does do, or at least it did for them, was create such a resiliency of character and resiliency of wanting to live for the people around you. And it created this positiveness for us as a family. We drew closer together. We were more supportive. And, it's terrible. This cancer is terrible, but it can have great ramifications when we look at it in a way of how can this help me grow and do that. So one idea on that.
Yeah.
Another thing Epictetus says is the more you seek to control, the less control you have over your own life. Isn't that really what anxiety is? These are the things I can't control. That's why I'm worried about them. If I can control it, it would be no problem. But the more that we try to gain that control, the less we have of ourselves. We lose ourselves. We give ourselves away because we're focusing on those things and saying, this is where my mind is going to be right now. Going back to last week's episode about not living in the present moment, we're trying to go back and fix things all the time and stop things from happening. And Epictetus says this is going to be what helps you lose your life, is by giving your time and your emotion over to that. So very good for that. So those are the two things that we really have to focus on and make sure that we're putting our mindset into being only focused on the things that we can control. Another question here. What helps you personally deal with anxiety?
There's a few things that I was looking over and just kind of thinking about it before we talked about this. And so currently it's been journaling. We have the journal that's part of the Octod book. And I never used to journal before I did, and I learned a lot from you just saying, just write down what you had for the day. What did you eat? And was it, something really good? And was it not? So just writing simple things. So journaling for me it really helped me to put my thought process down, my feelings, and it helped with, processing my emotions and to gain perspective.
Oh, that's good.
Another one was practicing self-care, which was exercising more. Yeah. We just talked to our youngest daughter about that today, and I was just like, exercise was a big thing, because we weren't doing it as often. So that has been a big help, making sure that we put that in our schedule for the week. And setting realistic goals, because I feel like sometimes, we were just like, there's all these things that we have to do. So it's the reason why we came down with our system. Monday through the next Monday, this is what our schedule looks like. So just setting realistic goals, making larger tasks into smaller, manageable tasks. So those are three things for me right now,
Oh, that's very good.
To help decrease my anxiety.
Yeah, and what I did is I went to a few different sites and organizations and American Psychology Association and several of them, and pulled off some commonalities of things that can help with anxiety disorder. One was, as you said, exercise. Walking and yoga were the two biggest things. And I could see why, because yoga is a very, calm thing for that. Tai Chi would be a good one for that as well. But walking, it's so easy to do. Yep. You just get out, you take a moment, kind of taking everything around you. So that was good. Another one across the board, more sleep.
Yes.
Across the board.
Definitely.
We think, if we don't sleep enough, it makes us groggy. We don't realize it's actually feeding into our anxiety that we have, and depression for that point. It can also go the other way with depression. You can sleep way too much, and that'll be another episode that we do down the line. But, not getting enough sleep, and the recommended is 8 hours, and I'm going to be honest, I think I've had 1 8-hour night probably in the last 3 to 4 weeks. Where I've had that. I do get up very early in the morning, though. I get up at 4 o'clock, so sometimes it's really hard to have an 8-hour night. But at least getting 6.5, 7 hours of sleep, whereas we're kind of used to 4.5 maybe hours of sleep a night. So getting more sleep can help with anxiety.
And having someone to talk to is really important, even if it's just one person, because through years of anxiety has really built up a lot of depression. And that is the one thing I could say that really had gotten me through things, was just being able to talk to somebody about it. Whether it was a best friend or a spouse or, someone in your church group or a counselor. But that's really important, because anxiety really, really leads to depression. And that's what I went through.
We just watched a video from Mark Manson. I love watching his stuff in the morning. It kind of just helps set my day. Just great stuff. And award-winning author and sold a cajillion books, and he talked about psychology and which one do you do? Is it cognitive behavioral therapy? Is it emotional behavioral therapy? Well, which one do you do? And he showed a statistic that almost all of them across the board are helpful. It really didn't matter, which one. They were all helping people with less anxiety, less depression. So having somebody to talk to, we do not subscribe to the old school thinking of therapy is for people that are crazy or therapy is for people that are really, really bad. Therapy is for everybody.
Everyone.
Everyone.
Yep.
There's benefits for everyone with it. So that's one of them as well. One other one that they talk about, and everybody's guilty of this, okay? So we're going to all raise our hands on this one. Breaking from your screens, which includes television and phones, specifically at nighttime. But what do you think? What is the reason you think screen time on your phone could cause anxiety? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Probably, just the light alone on it, the screen.
Sure. Physically, yeah.
And just, it's the constant,
yeah,
the things that are constantly making you, what's the word? The stimulation.
Sure.
You're constantly being stimulated, so there's no downtime. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's also the content that's on there, because every other thing is so-and-so died, there's explosions here, this car tipped over here, this family has been lost here, and it's very sad.
Yeah.
It's very depressing, and it makes you very worried about it. One of the things on YouTube to get clicks is say anxiety inducing. People used to put that in their description, on scary clips or things like that, or things of bugs, warning, anxiety inducing. And then we are excited by that and say, let me click on that so that I can have that moment of anxiety and see if it really is as bad as you say it is. So yeah, things like that can cause us to have anxiety and depression for it. So cutting down the screen time, especially for bed. Guys, read before bed. Something that I need to do a lot more of, but I really enjoy. Read a book before bed. I know even some people say that can be too stimulating, but compared to the phone or the television, it's way, way better.
And going back to the Octad, the book, practicing meditation. Meditation, doing deep breathing exercises, and like you said, yoga, whatever, but... Yeah.
And you mentioned journaling. So those things, what I really love is that people from all these disciplines right now going across the board, whether you're a student of Stoicism or just general psychology or even faith-based Christians and atheists alike, everybody is saying meditation and journaling are positive to help you live a better life. So if we're all finding benefits in it, there must be something behind that. So that is a great way to decrease anxiety for sure. Just having a place to get it all out. So very good. I want to kind of leave us off today. We're past our 30-minute mark, guys. I'm sorry, it's a little bit longer episode, but anxiety affects all of us, and it's an important thing for how we deal with it. My last quote here is from Musonius Rufus. He says, "Have a firm conviction that hardships, even death, are not evil." And this is going to kind of spring us into the next episode, which we're going to have next weekend, which is on death. And it's going to be a hard one, just warning you guys in advance, but a very important one. But I like what he says. We have a conviction in our hearts. This is a deep-rooted belief that hardships, even death, are not evil. Setbacks are expected and okay, that we can have those. Setbacks are what shapes us into the person we are. I do a meme on TikTok. If you guys follow us on there, I just write a quote. They usually go up every day or every other day on there. But one of our biggest, liked ones, shared ones, view-wise, was talking about who are we to rob experiences from other people. Those experiences shape who that individual are. We're there to help them when they need us. And that means setbacks, hardships, broken relationships, loss of job, loss of money, loss of resources. They are helping to polish you. Thank you. My wife just pulled it up here. Who are we to deny the experiences of others, good or bad? Those experiences make up the individual into what they were intended to be. Our role is to be prepared to reach out our hand should they stumble. So that's it. We have to go through these things. And Epictetus said, consider yourself an actor. When you think about your life, you've been assigned a role. Your job is to play that role well. No small actor or no small parts, just small actors type of thing. If your setbacks are in your life, that's the hand that you've been dealt. How are you going to play that? How are you going to make that a positive thing? So we can stop saying, oh my gosh, it's happened again to me. It's going to destroy me. Instead of saying, it's happened to me again. What am I going to do with this? And that kind of goes back to an episode we had, a few weeks ago on that. But stop fearing the things that have not come. Anxiety needs to dissipate. Are we still going to worry about things time to time? Yeah, we are. They're beyond our control. And we go back to the serenity prayer that they have for people who are going through Alcoholics Anonymous. It was hung up in every house that I ever went to as a child. They had in there. Lord, grant me the serenity. Know the things I can control and the things that I can't. And to have that serenity, that peace of mind that, yes, this bad thing has happened to me, but there's nothing I could have done about it. Yeah. All I can do about it is right now in the moment of how I use this to positively affect myself and the people around me. So,
yeah. Going back to, just other ways of helping is just also through prayer. And that was for me as well. Mm-hmm. Prayer time was really important. Joining a church group of other like-minded people and just knowing that others were there who've gone through the same thing or are going through the same thing, and being able to help, have each other to hold each other accountable. But yeah, just a lot of prayer and reading the Bible as well.
Yeah. 1 Peter 5, casting all your care upon him, for he careth for you. So, very good. Falls right in line with that. Good job. Quick announcement. So we are going to try to make this a regular day. I know it's kind of been uploaded as we can. We are trying to do, we have like a YouTube channel, and we have the podcast, and we have shorts that we're doing and all of that. And then my daughter came in tonight and she said, can you edit a video for me for school that I have to do? And I'm like, oh, sure. So we're trying to be very consistent with things. So going forward, we have an announcement. We're going to do 2 podcasts a week. The first one is going to be on Tuesday. That's going to be a light one. It'll be a fun one. It might even be a short one. That's going to be stories of Stoicism. So these are the Stoics that we quote all the time here, that we read about, crazy things that have happened in their life that took them to where they were. And when we read those things, we can look at them and say, oh man, that's way worse than what I went through. And they were able to come out, or that's exactly what I'm going through right now. So, so Stoic Side Stories will be on Tuesdays, and then Saturday nights is going to be our big podcast. And next Saturday night is going to be on death. So I'm going to give a warning. It's a sensitive subject. I'll give a warning before the podcast too. If you've had someone pass away, if you deal with general death anxiety disorder, things like that, just viewer discretion, or listener discretion, I should say, advised. But we're going to handle it in a way that I hope is very respectful and kind of gives us maybe a new insight on what death is and how death can actually be an ally to us. So, and
probably the next book you're going to be writing about.
It could be, yes. Well, I have 2 books in production right now that I'm writing on. Once those are done, that will be the next one. And I actually really look forward to reading it. I was a person that dealt with death anxiety quite a bit, and my life has been completely turned around as far as my thinking on those things. Once I started realizing that death is an ally to us, and we'll get into that next week. But yes, so thank you guys all for listening. Please share this with other people. We're hearing great comments back from a lot of people, actually, that are telling us this has helped changing our lives. We got an analytic this week. I just got to laugh. We got an analytic this week that we were number 5 in Peru for self-help, and number like 12 or 15 in Pakistan for self-help. So guys in Peru and Pakistan that have listened to this, thank you. We appreciate that. But we just love doing this because we are people that are students of faith and Stoicism, and it helps us to work things out, and we get to bring you guys along with us. So if you have any subjects you guys want to talk about, any questions you have, we would love to do a Q&A show where if you guys give us questions, we can kind of go over those. But until next time, thank you all for listening. You can check us out on our YouTube channel. It's fairly new, but it's called My Stoic 60. So if you look up My Stoic 60 on there, the channel will pop up with our videos on there. Of course, you can share us and with Spotify and Podbean and Amazon and iTunes and all of those on there as well. And make sure you check us out on our social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter,
TikTok.
Did I say Twitter?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's not even Twitter anymore. TikTok, yes. We're not on X. We're on TikTok. Thank you guys so much. Until next time, have a great night. Have a great week. And as always, Semper Studiosus. Thank you guys. See you then.